Hello and welcome to Pro Trader Strategies market commentary for what is it, Tuesday, November the 27th? My name's Eric Wilkinson, and some of you may recognize me as the Wolfman from CNBC, Fox Business, or even the Wall Street Journal for my commentary on everything from economic to geopolitical and market analysis. Please keep in mind that everything that we talk about in these market commentaries is not a solicitation to buy or sell any of these securities or strategies. At the end of the day, I'm here to teach you some different strategies you can then implement into your portfolios, but please do that in your own way. Also, remember the past performance of any trading system or methodology is not necessarily indicative of future results. All right, having that out of the way, let's get it on with economic data. This is a good week for economic data. It hasn't really started yet, other than the fact that we've had a couple of Fed governors speaking. We had Charles speaking earlier, we had an FOM speak. I can't remember who it was, but we did have a speaker earlier on this morning and are getting another one later on today. I think Bostic speaks later on this afternoon. And then a couple of governors, interest rate governors or bank governors across the pond also are speaking. But that's about it. Other than we did get CB, consumer confidence, came in slightly lower than expected at 135.7, expected to be 136.2. So just slightly lower than expected there. Let's look at the overall markets. We've got crude oil moving higher today again. I think that this is really just a short cover bounce, if you will, because tomorrow we get the crude oil inventories, and I think that that's really what the market is kind of shaking up for today. They're jockeying back and forth on their positions. If you were short, you're probably covering at least most, if not part of it. And if you are long, you might be thinking this is the time to capitulate to get out. So, or just lighten up a position, hedge it, things of that nature. It's going to keep crude oil in and around this mid 50s area for the better part of the day, I would have to expect. And then later on tonight, we'll get the ADP number, and that will mix up the market because people will trade off of it, despite the fact that they should not trade off of that and should wait for the DOE, which is the number we get tomorrow from the Department of Energy. That is the one that is mandated that they give the real inventories for. The ADP number is more of a voluntary, and they can voluntarily give you without any repercussions, then they don't necessarily have to be very accurate with that information. So wait for the DOE because that is the more accurate data point. Then on to gold futures. We've got gold kind of giving up a bit of room right now, but one thing to note here, we are gaining big acceptance down at these levels. Remember, it was in the 13 handle where the time and volume has been spent. That's still the case, but you can see we are building a big volume node right here, about $100 lower at around the 1225 area. That is becoming where the price is being accepted. We could see the point of control move down to this level relatively soon in the next week or so, because you can see we are getting the time volume and the time node and the volume node building up right here. That could move everything down relatively soon. That would indicate there is no magnet above. The magnet is actually building right here. We're gaining a new area of acceptance right around 1225. As I've talked about, I think that this is about where it's going to kind of stick. Then we're talking about the bonds. Bonds unchanged, slightly higher on the day. For the most part, it's just kind of a wait and see game for the rest of the economic data later this week, which we get the CPI and things of that nature that are really going to be the market drivers. Bitcoin, the only reason why I brought this up is it is continuing a slide that I don't know if it's sustainable to hold. I was expecting it to want to stay right around where break even was for these miners. And now that it's below that by quite a bit, these miners are losing money to produce a coin. The amount of energy that it takes to go into building the infrastructure and the energy that it takes to produce the actual electricity to drive the servers to produce that one coin is well over and above where the current underlying is trading, which means it is not profitable to produce coins at these levels. So we're going to have to see how this shakes out going forward, whether these guys are going to try to continue to produce coins despite the fact that they're losing money at these levels. And that I haven't heard anything here or there about whether or not that is the case, but that is intuitively what I start thinking when I start seeing the levels and the value and everything else in and around Bitcoin. All right, let's talk about VIX. It is moving higher today. We do have the equities in slightly negative territory right now. This does look like it's a positive bar, but that's because the index opened up lower than where we started yesterday, and we are currently higher than where we opened up, making it a green candle. But we are lower than yesterday's settlement, making us negative. That being said, I think that we are going to test this value area high at least this week, possibly next week. Possibly this week, but at least by next week, let's say. We've got the NASDAQ in positive territory, pushing towards the highs. They were just in negative territory not too long ago, but you can see they want to test the point of control, or sorry, the value, the Fibonacci 23 level here before we move up to where the value area is. I think it needs to do that. We're seeing that happening in the E-mini S&Ps where we peeled above that Fibonacci level, and looks like we are kind of in clear sailing to head towards that point of control, which is what I'm expecting to have happen. A lot of the equities are in and around very close to where their point of control is for the year. That is a magnet, and would expect us to kind of settle down in and around these levels, maybe see some volatility come out as well. E-mini S&P is on the 30-minute chart, almost an inside day. You can see the value area high and low. The value area low is slightly lower than yesterday's, making that not a quote-unquote inside day, but with the amount of volume that's been trading, it feels very much like an inside day because it's all been trading inside of yesterday's value area high and low, other than the early morning session, overnight session that was traded. That kind of made those value areas extend out a little bit more than normal. Now, I haven't added anything at all. I'm just kind of keeping an eye on my position as the market is kind of doing what I've expected. It's going to get a little bit volatile, but maybe migrate back towards those point of controls, especially in the equities. I think that we're building a new point of control for the gold futures. But with the equities, I think that we are going to start migrating just slightly higher. I've talked about this time and time again, that we've created value area high and low, and those are areas that have shown support and resistance. We can look at the E-mini S&P chart here. This is the daily chart again. Value area high lines up with the 50 Fibonacci extension. That has acted as resistance on the upside, and you can see that's right where the value area high is. Similarly, with the value area low, not really showing a Fibonacci level here, but the value area low acting as that support that I've talked about for a couple of weeks now, at least, maybe even a couple of months now. That being said, this is where I think that we found that support, bounced up, and start moving up and away. But you can see the two value area high and the value area low acting as that support. That's what I've talked about. We're going to stay within that area and kind of settle down. We haven't quite settled down yet, but we've stayed within that area like I've expected. So that going forward, I think we're going to kind of just slowly creep higher. But like I said, I've not done anything with my overall positions. eBay, I do have a long position in here from the gap. If you remember, I've lowered the basis quite dramatically, sold some puts in there, but it is just kind of sticking here. So I'm going to start continuing to lower basis in eBay as it's doing kind of what I've expected. Amazon, I've taken some heat on this. It's not come anywhere close to really my strike prices necessarily, but that being said, volatility hasn't come out and the directionality hasn't been overwhelmingly in my favor today and yesterday, getting that bit of a move higher, which is helping out quite a bit in Amazon. So I'm sticking with that one. Hopefully we'll start seeing more volatility come out as we go forward. That will allow me to get out of this trade rather soon. If you remember, in that Amazon trade, I am short the 1355 puts in there. So looking for a little bit more movement up and volatility to come out, but don't really have anything going on in there right now. And Caterpillar playing around with that as well, but still probably 25 cents away from that, but I'm just working a bid in there, and that's in Caterpillar. I have on the Dees 110 puts that I'm short, trying to get out for about 50% of my max profit. I sold those originally for $1.22. I think it's trading around 85 cents or so, and I'm working a 60-cent bid, so I'm about 25 cents away. That's about it for today. Sorry I got a little long-winded. I think there's a lot to talk about, though, with the overall markets. Kind of just talking about basically what I've talked about for the last couple of weeks, and how these markets are kind of following through with what my thesis was for these market moves. And that's it. Other than check out Thursday's webinar and give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, like or dislikes on this video. If you give me a dislike, let me know what it is you disliked about it, all right? And if you give me a thumbs up, let me know what you liked about it as well. Always welcome any type of feedback so that I can kind of tweak these videos to your liking, all right? So if you can't take that, take it easy.